the co-lead at the Planetary Health Collective. And if you are joining us here tonight for our Planetary Health on the Menu, Sustainability and Food and Nutrition Careers panel event, you are in the right place. So first things first, we love for these events to be really interactive and lively and fun. So please go ahead and drop your name in the chat right now. Let us know where it is that you are joining us from today. We're also going to share a land acknowledgement link so that you can know whose land you are on in your introduction to us tonight. And then also let us know, what is one reason that you decided to register for tonight's events? We're always looking to make sure that these events are delivering on exactly what it is that you're hoping to get out of them. So please let us know, and also feel welcome to send questions in the chat. Let us know any thoughts, reflections that are really poignant for you as we're going through tonight's event. And also if there's like a quote or something like that from the event tonight that you found to be really particularly inspirational, go ahead and let us know. One quick housekeeping thing before we get started. Tonight's event is going to be recorded, so please go ahead and mute your line if you have not yet done so already. If you do have thoughts you want to share, you're welcome to share those in the chat. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started now with the agenda. So we'll briefly go over some norms and etiquette for tonight's call, and then I'm going to introduce you to who we are at the Planetary Health Collective. Tonight's event is going to be a little bit different from how we've run our panel events in the past, in that I'm going to pass it over to Mary. And before we dive into our panel introductions, we are going to actually share an action opportunity for all of you to do right here, right now, during tonight's event, so that you can get involved in something that the Planetary Health Collective is also involved in. And then we'll pass it off to Mary to introduce you to our panelists for tonight. She will be moderating questions that we've put together so that you can get to know the panelists a little bit better, and we can kind of dig into their story of self and what it is that drew them to this work with sustainability in nutrition. And then we're also going to be compiling all of the questions that you send into the chat during the event, so that we can pitch those questions to our panelists tonight. And Bretta will be moderating that portion of the event. You're gonna wanna hang out until the very end of the event if you can, because Mary is gonna pop back in to share a really, really cool resource with you guys that you're gonna wanna know about right before we sign off for the evening. And then we're gonna give you also some information about the next event that we have coming up with the Planetary Health Collective, which is gonna be super fun and interactive as well. All right, quick norms and etiquette. If you have not done so yet, please go ahead and mute your line and introduce yourself in the chat. We'd love to get to know you all and where it is that you're joining us from tonight and what you're most excited about with tonight's event. As always, please remember to practice respect in this space, and any sort of hate speech will result in removal from the event tonight, which of course we know will not be a problem. And participate. We want this to be relaxed. We want this to be fun and participatory. So please go ahead and let us know if you have any thoughts, inspiration, questions that come up as we go through the event tonight. And finally, we are so excited to announce that we are officially a 501c3 nonprofit organization, which means that your donations to us are tax deductible. So please, if you love coming to our events, if this is your first time tonight, but you love what we're doing and you want to continue to help us foster community in the food and nutrition space for a more climate resilient future for all, please consider donating to us. And we are so appreciative of your presence here tonight and your support so that we can continue putting on events like this for you all in the future. But first, who are we? Who is the Planetary Health Collective? So we are a movement of food and nutrition professionals who are collectively passionate about doing everything that we can to mitigate climate change and nourish human health. We see climate change as the most pressing threat to human and natural life, and we want to do everything that we can within our careers with our skill sets and unique passions to help build a more climate resilient food future for everyone. We do that at the Planetary Health Collective by activating, incubating, and elevating the leadership potential of our community members in the food and climate space. Our vision overall is to provide an unparalleled opportunity for all of you who are here tonight, for our community, to channel your unique passions and skills towards this fight against the climate crisis. So If this is your first time joining us tonight, again, we're so grateful to have you here. And we have so many different events that we would love to see you at. So if tonight's event, it's something that resonates for you, we have a couple of different events that we would like to share with you all, and we'll do so just at the very end so we can get straight to our panel introductions tonight. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Mary. She is going to do a fun little interactive exercise with you all. And then we're going to dive in to introduce you to our two panelists of the night, Mark Rifkin and Ali Manson. All right, Mary, it's on you.
Thank you, Aitan. And in order for me to do our fun little exercise tonight, I will need to share my screen. So if you can unshare yours, I will share mine. And one of the things that we love to do at the Planetary Health Collective is to build community, to make you all feel like you are part of the movement. And we do that by engaging in all kinds of activities on our Facebook group, having conversations, having these kinds of events. And I wanted to make sure everyone got a chance to just partake in a little bit of a discussion online tonight. So you'll see a link in the chat here. It's something called Mentimeter. If you would click on this link and put in your response to the question that is asked there, that would be wonderful. And then I will be sharing my screen, and we will get a chance to see what some of the responses are to this question. And this question is, what is one of your favorite places in nature? So if you're able to take a moment, click on that link and put in a favorite spot in nature. And that can be a general thing like, I love the mountains, I love the ocean, or it can be a specific spot like my grandmother's backyard or Mount Rainier or whatever you actually love. So can you all see my screen here okay? You're able to see that?
Mary, I think that link takes us, oh, never mind, we're all good.
Oh, I'm seeing it. I'm seeing beautiful things come up already. We've got the beach, just the wilderness, the general wilderness. Who doesn't love a little wilderness in their life? Among the trees. Oh, you've got a friend, the forest, farm, ocean, nature in general. Just get me into nature. Yes, absolutely. Wow, there's a lot. Among the trees, our home garden, the Twin Lakes, the beach, the woods, the desert. Look at all these different responses. Some of you love the water, some of you love the trees, some of you love the mountains. So, oh, Butler Sanctuary near me. Oh my gosh, this is making me want to go to all these incredible places. And I think one of the things in the coral reefs, not just the coral reefs, but being in the coral reefs, I imagine there might be a snorkeler amongst us, or perhaps a scuba diver, or just an appreciateur of the coral reefs. So thank you so much for sharing all those wonderful responses. There's actually more. I can see the farm. Oh my gosh, it just keeps on going on. There's a fabulous name of something called, it's a glacier lagoon. Looks like Yokul Sarlon. I'm not sure where that is, but thank you for sharing that. Hopefully we'll all have a chance to look up these places in nature. And one of the reasons that I put this up here is because when we connect to those places that we love and feel so connected to in nature, it really provides an extra incentive to do everything we can to preserve, protect these beautiful environments that we love so much. There's another phrase that I want to reach out to you and ask around, which is, what words or phrases describe the word sustainability to you? And I am seeing answers in the chat here already. I see recycle, I see respect, I see future, I see use as needed, I see carbon footprint, I see lightly. Looks like we got a couple of answers in here, perhaps from the first question, the redwoods. I hear that one 100%. And I see collaboration, representation, plant-based eating, creative.
Bring my phone from the purse.
If you can mute yourselves, everybody, that would be great, just so that we're not having two of us dialoguing at the same time. I see soil, I see representation. Oh my gosh, you guys are incredible. This is such a, we're gonna save this, this beautiful word cloud and be able to either house it somewhere or just at least have it available to people to see, because so many beautiful ideas. Contraception, my kids, soil, unity, collaboration, living in eco-harmony. Oh my God, just incredible. Thank you so much for all these wonderful ways of thinking about this idea of sustainability. And who knows, that definition, these kinds of words may grow, change and evolve as you begin to learn more about what it means to be working in a sustainable food system for a sustainable food system, and honoring these natural environments. So let me pause on this for a moment. And next up, we promised being able to give you guys an action step. Very often we feel trapped in this idea of, wow, there's a lot going wrong with the world and I feel powerless. What can one person do, like myself? Now, of course, you're going to be hearing two amazing panelists who can tell you a lot about what you can do in the nutrition profession. But even as an individual, we can all take actions on a small scale, on a large scale, on a local, federal, or global scale. And I wanted to share with you a movement that is happening right now that is really easy to get involved with. And this is called Regenerate America. This is a movement that is specifically geared towards the Farm Bill, and trying to get more funds included in the Farm Bill for farmers and those who wish to grow food in a regenerative way, focusing on building health back into the soil, not only as a climate change mitigator or climate crisis mitigator, but as a way to provide more access to those who are looking to have land and farm in this way, and to create and grow more sustainably grown foods that ultimately have higher nutritional benefits as well. So this is a little bit more about this. You can see the link in the chat here, and you are welcome to do one simple action, and you can do this all right now. You can all go to this link and fill your name into the area there where it says support healthy soil now. It's super easy. You can say that you are an advocate. If you're a farmer, you can say that you are a farmer. And you are essentially rejoining or joining the Regenerate America campaign. This is a bipartisan effort, so it's got a lot of support on both sides, and it really is a no-brainer. It's about more education, more resources, and more access to the people who are growing our food and who will be or can be growing our food. So thank you for taking action. All of these collective actions, even when they seem small, they build up into one amazing transformative action that hopefully will transform and reimagine our entire food system. So thank you for taking part in that. We'll put that link back into the chat too throughout tonight's event. Now, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I-10, if you would reshare your screen so that we can get our wonderful panelists up and running, that would be great. And I will start the conversation here. We feel so blessed to have two amazing panelists tonight. And as you know, we have been doing these events for probably, 18 months now, close to 2 years. And we're always so happy to have people from all different backgrounds with amazing stories to tell and amazing experiences to share. If you are somebody who would be interested in being on our panel, let us know. If you know somebody who needs to be on our panel, let us know. We are constantly trying to find and broaden our panelists database. So the more people we can get working in this movement, the better. So please do let us know. And our goal here is to empower you, our listeners tonight, to feel like you have a role to play. And I know that these two folks tonight will help you to understand ways that you can be part of this movement to transform our food system for the sake of mitigating this climate crisis. So without any further ado, I would love to introduce our first guest speaker, panelist, and that is Mark Rifkin. So Mark Rifkin is the Senior Food and Agriculture Policy Specialist at the Center for Biological Diversity, where he advances sustainable diets via policy. He is a registered dietitian, holds a master's degree in health education, and will soon complete another master's degree in environmental science and policy at Hopkins. He specializes in practical applications of plant-based diets and their implications for sustainability, policy, and health. Mark, thank you so much for being with us. I will let you take it from here. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mary, and thank you, A10 and Bretta. It's a pleasure to be here. Good evening, everyone. And I'm in Maryland, in the Baltimore area, so I'm on Piscataway land. I will share my screen. So, thanks again for having me. So, in my experience, I think we all need to focus on a couple of key points that I hope to bring out tonight. And the first of which is, what unique features do you bring as a potential job candidate? So those features could be in the form of a degree or credentials, experience or skill set, perhaps having written an article, a paper, or perhaps you have unique strategies in your thinking process or your understanding of the evidence base. You have to bring something unique that nobody else has. Otherwise, you're just a name on a list, or you're more likely to be a name on a list. I also am concerned that some people may not actually have the knowledge and understanding they perceive. So I'm a big fan of updating and solidifying your knowledge base. So of course that involves peer-reviewed research and perhaps even taking courses, or perhaps, as Mary mentioned, I'm completing a second graduate degree. And so see, these are some of the programs that I came across in my search. Admittedly, my list is probably 2 years old. I know that there are other programs that are out there now that are not on my list.
Mark, I just want to jump in real quick. I know you have slides and we just can't see them right now.
Oh, that would be helpful.
But you're doing great.
Well, thank you. It always helps to share my screen. Okay, let's try that again. All right, how about now?
Good to go.
Okay, so thanks for pointing that out. So these are some of the graduate programs that I came across in my search. Keep in mind that sustainability content will vary substantially program to program. So some of them will be very general, some of them will be much more food focused. Also notice, whoops, that was not intentional. Also notice that some, I have a note here about land grant universities. The name came about because the states were granted land by the feds to focus on agriculture when food insecurity was very high. That means they focused a lot and they created programs focused on animal agriculture. So many of the large state-based universities, Penn State is a great example, University of Maryland, they're land grant universities. They're likely to have heavy emphasis on animal agriculture, which means a sustainability program focused on agriculture as well might not provide them the kind of content they're seeking, so to speak. That's unfortunate, of course, but also, so when you're looking at various organizational targets that you think you might want to work for, remember that this is a two-way evaluation. You should be evaluating them as much as they are going to be evaluating you. So apply a critical eye when you're looking at their materials. So again, not only their website, but also where they got mentioned in major media, in op-eds, quotes, etc., on different websites. Google their presence, find out what they've done. Look at their position papers, their articles. Keep in mind that there's no such thing as perfection. So you won't find 100% agreement on every possible issue with every organization. In fact, you may not find it with any organizations. The question is, can you accept the differences? So, so ultimately, it comes really down to that question. And then, of course, how do your results from the number one slide, in other words, what do you bring unique to the table? How did they fit into your preferred target? So ultimately, that means creating a sense of urgency. Why now? And particularly, why you now? So, so that could be a combination of several different things within the space. I'm realizing why I didn't see my notes. So, so for example, what's happening in the research space or the media space that makes you urgent to be hired right now? Or what's happening in the policy space, again, whether that's local, national, or international, whether that's with in a government policy context, or perhaps in an NGO context, such as the United Nations. So for example, if you're particularly skilled at communications, that skill set could be critical in the discussion about to counter the beef industry's claim that beef is an essential component of sustainability. And yes, they are making that case. And they are not going to just go away just because people want them to go away. They're going to hammer that case with everything they've got. So if you can demonstrate your essential skill set in communications, guess what? That makes you a top candidate. So you ultimately, if you can communicate that sense of urgency to your target and say, yeah, you need to bring me on because I have the following. And if you don't bring me on, well, that of course, that could influence policy, because if the beef industry is able to communicate that message effectively, that could influence policy options that of course will worsen the environmental crises. That's not going to be a good solution. So, so those are some key points I think every good candidate should address as they're looking to make themselves eligible for an interview. And I hope to listen to your questions, and I hope we can all chat and commiserate further. And I will turn it back.
Thank you so much, Mark. I think we're going to be really interested to find out how you've wound up at Center for Biological Diversity and the work that you are doing with that organization, because it's an unusual place for RDs to find themselves, or for nutrition professionals to find themselves. And I want to highlight an article that Mark wrote, which he called Getting into Good Trouble, that was all about really emphasizing the need for incorporating sustainability into the dietary guidelines. It's a great article. If you haven't read it, I will put it in the chat, and hopefully we'll get to talk with Mark a little bit more about the outcome of that article as well. In the meantime, I would love to introduce our second panelist, Ali Landsman, who has actually done some fantastic work for PHC as well. Ali Landsman is a fat, queer RD and MPH candidate at Des Moines University. She is a sustainable systems specialist and owner of Ali Landsman Sustainable Nutrition Writing and Education Services. On her social channels, Ali advocates and activates for elevating RDs as environmental health, resilient agriculture, and nutrition and climate justice leaders. Thank you so much for being here, Ali, and I'll let you take it away.
Hello, I am beyond excited to be here. I do want to apologize ahead of time to everybody on the call. My Wi-Fi is not perfect in my home, so I apologize if there's any like cutouts. But I am super excited to be here. I am also located in the central area of the state in the Midwest. I'm in central Iowa, which is occupied land of the Iowa, Meskwaki, and Fox Nations. I am a sustainable, resilient, and just food system specialist. That is my main focus. That is what I'm focusing currently on as a Master's of Public Health candidate at Des Moines University, which is a private university here in Iowa, and which is very interesting because Des Moines University is an osteopathic university primarily, but the great part about my master's degree is that I am able to customize it the way I want. So among all these individuals who are DOs and PTs, I have turned myself into the sustainable food system and environmental nutrition specialist. And as I go through my master's, I reflect back on my previous experiences in education. when it comes to education, I went to Iowa State University for my dietetic education. I completed my dietetic internship through Iowa State University as well, with a global rotation in Paris, France, which focused on global food systems, which was an amazing experience. And after Iowa State, I proceeded to do professional experiences like Food Corps. I don't know if we have any Food Corps alums on the webinar right now, but I served in Central Iowa as well, where I currently live, which was an amazing segue to engaging dietitians, engaging nutrition professionals across professional lines. I was the only individual with the nutrition background on my Food Corps cohort. But I was able to communicate with individuals from a variety of different backgrounds, from anthropology to women's studies, and beyond, learning about the importance of collaboration and the importance of health, nutrition, and environmental justice. So that was a really big spearhead for me bringing the just piece into my professional career as I moved into sustainable food systems and focused on that through my master's degree. I am coming up on the end of it, which thank goodness, those of you who have already done a master's degree, you know what it's like, those who have done an undergrad, those who are currently doing that continuing education. I'm very excited to have that done, but it's been an absolutely amazing experience. The benefit of creating essentially my own program to complete my master's of public health with a sustainable, resilient, and just food system focus has given me an absolutely amazing experience when it comes to connecting with food systems within and beyond the dietetic and nutrition cohort in my state and in my region. Just a little bit about what I've done. I've done collaborative opportunities, gaining multidisciplinary interaction, and the understanding of a framework that I developed, which was the nutrition, health, and agriculture nexus. I'm going to be releasing a white paper, which I am working tirelessly on right now, based on an Iowa focus, but it can be expanded beyond. But my main preceptor has been Angie Tagtoe. If anybody knows Angie Tagtoe, she is an amazing dietitian who worked in the USDA under the Obama administration. And she is my main preceptor. And she's been an amazing guiding light to connecting and straddling the fences of public health, environmental health, nutrition, and agriculture. I'm also working in tandem with Angie with the Practical Farmers of Iowa and UNI, the University of Northern Iowa's Center for Environmental and Energy Education. So it's been a crazy experience, but it's been phenomenal and has really informed what I want to be doing in the future. In the main focus of sustainable, resilient, and just food systems, but I do tend to, I look at the entire food system as a whole, but really tend to look towards the methods of food and farming production and the environmental impacts at a systems approach, at a systems level, and integrating multidisciplinary collaboration. So in addition to all this work, I am also a freelance sustainability and environmental educator, writer, and consultant. I plan to continue that. I'm going to switch up a little bit of my focus to do a little bit more one-on-one with brands, companies, for addressing sustainability within practices and genuine, authentic allyship within that as well. And I do have my list. I tend to go on and on and on. So I want to make sure I hit it all. But leading myself into this area, I'll probably mention it a little bit more, but I actually ended up in food systems and I never thought I was going to. I grew up on a conventional industrial agriculture farm going back several generations. We grew corn and soybeans, no livestock. There was very complex dynamics on a farm and very laden in sexism, patriarchal norms and standards. And I never wanted anything to do with agriculture when I was younger. And then I fell in love with it at Iowa State. Ironically, it was a very interesting class that hopefully I'll be able to give the nuances. But I went on, expanded into sustainable agriculture and realized I can't talk to individuals about what's on their plate and what they should be eating if we don't think about the roots of where our food is coming from first, and how that impacts planetary, personal, population health as well. So that is a little bit about me, but I'm looking forward to the questions and looking forward to getting to know everybody a little bit more. And I also, so like Mary said, I've been involved with the Planetary Health Collective. I'm transitioning into the editor-in-chief for written content, and I see a few of my writing staff on here. So shout out, thank you guys for coming.
Thank you so much, Allie, and thank you for the work that you have done, are doing, and will continue to do with us in terms of helping us to create a real wonderful resource in the writing world. So please keep your camera on, and if you can come back on, Mark, I had some questions for both of you, for all of our panelists here, so the three of us can hang out for a moment. So Allie, if you put your camera and mute button off, or put your camera on and your mute button off, we can have a conversation here again, if you're able to do that. Although I do love the cute beet and carrot graphic. So come back on, Allie. All right, there you are. Great, I'd love to start off with a question for Mark. You are working for the Center for Biological Diversity. You gave us all kinds of great examples about how a person in the nutrition profession might position themselves as an expert with a unique perspective and skill set. How did you wind up with the Center for Biological Diversity? How did you pitch them your unique skill set, and what was the process for getting into that field or into that organization?
Thanks, Mary. Well, at first, of course, I started with thinking about a graduate degree. I've been passionate about these issues for, shall we say, a very long time, without giving away my age. But I never had a graduate course in this content. So I started thinking about that. And then, of course, you know, you might say, since my age starts with a 5, not a 3 or a 4, I started wondering, well, is that really wise? And then I heard one of my then colleagues completing her PhD in her mid-30s. And I said, wait a minute, yeah, I'm going to do this. So that was the first part. The second part was essentially reviewing the websites and the public materials of virtually every environmental organization I could find. Admittedly, Center for Biological Diversity probably was not at the top of my list initially. But I went to all the major NGOs, including Sierra Club, Environmental Defense, Friends of the Earth, et cetera, and many of them did not meet my standards. I was lucky enough to hear about a webinar being presented by my now colleagues at the center, and they hit all the magic words in all the right ways and said all the right things, and the bells went off in my head, quite literally. Ding, 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 that's the prize. And then I created a sense of urgency in my cover letter, as I specifically mentioned the conflict with grass-fed and whether or not that really brings the benefits that are claimed by the grass-fed community, or if they are simply generalizing. So that apparently resonated with my now colleagues, and the rest that they say is history. I'm sorry to say that a lot of the other NGOs did not, again, meet my standards. A lot of them are, one of them in particular is working with Smithfield and Tyson to somehow literally put lipstick on a pig.
Yeah, well, I imagine everyone out there has a different set of criteria of what really
Yes.
their priorities, but the fact that you were able to essentially identify this organization that you really valued and was aligned with your values, and then you courted them and then you helped them to understand why your skill set would be so necessary. I think this is a terrific lesson for all of us out there who may have passions in all different kinds of areas, and finding that organization that aligns with ours is really important. So thank you for that. Allie, I wanted to ask you, you mentioned that you work as a consultant, working with brands and businesses, whether that's writing, educating. I'm curious, how do you work with them, and how are you marketing yourself as a consultant and your services?
Yeah. So just to be completely honest, I started in a way so that I could keep myself fed and a roof over my head. And then I have two very hungry little cat children that I also need to keep fed. So I really started with doing fluffy nutrition content. Wasn't necessarily sustainability focused, but that's the reality of how it started, because it's a larger net. But I began to narrow my focus into sustainability, because I knew all along that is where I wanted to go. But we also have to be realistic of the realities of living in a capitalist society, right? So I focused more on making sure, very similar to what Mark was saying, about looking at the values of different brands and different organizations. And if I aligned with what they aligned with. So if their values matched my values. And so one of my number ones being a consultant is not always the easiest, especially at the beginning. So doing a lot, and some other individuals, if you've ever done consulting who are also on the line, doing a lot of cold contact, which takes a lot of time, getting to know the individuals, putting the feelers out there, and then eventually, when you get a reputation, individuals start coming to you. One of my biggest items, though, is limiting the amount of effort that you're putting in without pay. That's a really big conversation right now in the consultant area. Also a huge piece of the food systems area as well, talking about individuals who are food system workers who do not get paid enough for their labor, specifically our migrant underpaid workers. So being careful what amount that you take for free, if you have the ability to have that option, and for low pay is also important. The main thing with marketing is it is a lot of hard work at the beginning, but eventually things slow down and people start coming to you. But not feeling bad about having a wide bucket at the beginning, because we definitely have to keep our fur babies fed, and that's okay.
Absolutely. Thanks for that perspective. We got to be real sometimes, and we need to speak up for ourselves and our skill set. So I do see some questions in the chat continuing this conversation. So I'll let Bretta take those on when she gets to this. And I really hear this, and I heard this from Mark as well, that this is very often very much about our own values as individuals or in the profession that we are in. That really sticking to those values is key, whether it's about an ethical situation, about moral, about what the mission is, and whether that is in alignment with your own mission. But this is not about compromising anyone's values to fit the needs of another organization that you want to work with, but really finding somebody and someone or something that makes you feel like the work you're doing is actually going to feed your soul and make you feel good about your life. Back to you, Mark. Question about this article that you wrote, which I thought was really fantastic. As I mentioned it earlier, this was an article that you wrote. It was an opinion piece in The Hill that was talking about the urgency. We'll bring back the word urgency because we are forever feeling that anyway, around getting sustainability to be a critical component of the dietary guidelines, which we know that it didn't necessarily wind up being. And I'm curious, that article that you wrote, what kind of response did you get? And are you feeling like sustainability in the dietary guidelines as a measure, as a tool for mitigating the climate crisis has been shown to be effective at all as we're moving more towards these guidelines that are coming out in the next year?
Excellent questions. Thank you, Mary. I think the response from the public and from other members of the sustainability community has been excellent. I actually didn't hear anything from any federal agency. I guess I shouldn't be surprised at that. As far as sustainability moving, shall we say, moving the needle, I have been impressed with other NGOs, other food-focused NGOs, who are also advancing the sustainability message with policymakers. So some of you may have heard about the upcoming White House Conference on Hunger, Nutrition, and Health, which has been unfortunately another opportunity for the administration to separate policy and sustainability. And they pretty much came right out and said, we are not incorporating sustainability into the conference in any way. And I was not the only one, actually, who confronted that challenge on the listening session calls that the staff coordinated. Other organizations came out and said, hey, hello, you can't ignore these issues. They're not going away. And I was really quite impressed. So I would say the needle has definitely moved. Mm-hmm. And of course, current events have only unfortunately supported that. What was it? Superstorm Sandy probably was the first event, I would say, that really kicked things into gear. And now, of course, we have the Colorado River that is substantially depleted. I forget by how much percent, but now they're putting, of course, water restrictions into place in many of the Western states. We had a freeze in Texas a year and a half ago. Yeah. So the evidence is overwhelming, and I think that has unfortunately been a key factor in moving the needle.
Yeah.
Whether it's, we're still waiting to see how the administration is going to respond. You might say I'm optimistic, but I'm not hopeful, or I'm hopeful but not optimistic.
One of the choose your adjective there.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the good news, the writing is on the wall, and the good news actually from today is that we did see Biden sign into law the Inflation Reduction Act, which is going to put sustainability more on the map and help farmers to incorporate more sustainable measures into their farming practices. So we'll see where that goes. That is a little bit of hope in an oftentimes hope-free world. One more question for Ali before I let Bretta take over as well. And that is, in terms of your path to getting where you are now. I mean, you're talking about doing this amazing program. I know there's a lot of people out there who may not have the funds, the time, whatever, to engage in a full-on master's degree, either for the second time or even for the first time. Where do you feel like they can get experience and education that may not take a full 2 years, but still may be valuable in getting them to the next step?
Personal education is always important. I believe Mark said earlier that this wasn't content that he learned in school. It was not what I learned in school either. It's also not something that's engaged in my master's. So I made it part of that. And I also seek out as much education as I can outside of it. The great part of food systems is that there's so many individuals who are extremely supportive and want to make this education and these opportunities to expand and collaborate as accessible and as inclusive as possible. So that is something that I absolutely love about food systems. But like I said, going back to when I first got the spark of food systems and engaging agriculture, in my dietetics degree, even though it's a little bit more revolutionary for individuals on the nutrition side of the fence, was taking a world food issues class at Iowa State University, which was developed by former professors Clark Ford at Iowa State and Ricardo Salvador. If you know Ricardo Salvador, I am a massive fan. He was a keynote speaker at one of my food corps trainings, and I almost died. And that is where I found out from him. He was a co-developer of this class that literally like changed the course of my outlook on my education. So highly recommend looking Ricardo up, Union of Concerned Scientists. Huge fan. Sorry, I will stop like fangirling. But this sparking that connection with agriculture, how important agriculture, our food and farming systems are for environmental sustainability and regeneration, renewal, really poked me toward looking into agriculture more seriously. And like I said, and also in a different way, because conventional agriculture, industrial agriculture, like I said, the systems of discrimination that work within our very patriarchal, misogynistic, capitalistic current agriculture systems was something that really put me off. And because of that, I thought it was the only way that agriculture could run, because that was all I had been exposed to all of my life. I didn't want to be engaged with agriculture, but then this opened up my eyes to new avenues, which was very exciting. And then I went on, did a global rotation in food systems with my internship, and then did food corps, and then engaged this in a brand new light within my master's degree. Like I said, among all the DOs and the PTs, and I'm just the odd one that talks about like how food is produced, but that's one of my number one things is have an open mind. There's so many different intricate, delicate, unique, amazing ways that food systems impact human nutrition and vice versa. And so always keeping in mind is a definite number one for me, or else I wouldn't be where I am right now. Getting creative is also important because our current systems don't allow nutrition professionals to be in these areas without a ton of work. So being creative, I think Eliza put in the notes here, which is one I, forgot to mention about another perspective, being involved in organizations and pitching regenerative, sustainable opportunities to expand that focus, which is something I've definitely done. But thank you, Eliza, for also putting that in there. And then also, don't be afraid to go against the grain. I push those boundaries all the time in my work, and I'm very happy to do it, especially here in Iowa. Bretta and I have had several conversations about it, being in the super sarcastic breadbasket of the United States. It is very contentious to be a sustainable regenerative agriculture advocate here. It's very hard. You make a lot of enemies, but you also find your very close-knit circle for individuals that you can collaborate with, both nationwide, but then also in your own region, in your own state, in your own community. And I have a very close-knit group of collaborators that I work with, whether they're dietitians or food systems professionals. So sorry, very long-winded, but
I'm going to need to pause you here because we have to
yes.
move on to other questions. And I do
Yes.
want to thank you so much for that perspective. And I also want to make sure that people hear, because I've had pushback myself when I talk about regenerative agriculture from the conventional farming community. And I think it's really essential that we also recognize and understand the perspective from the conventional farming community so that they don't feel excluded or pointed the finger at. Because then, you know, the whole idea of working towards reimagining the food system that doesn't include them can sometimes backfire. And I've had personal experience with that. So yes, being open-hearted, open-minded is key. And I will hop off here now. I have some great educational resources that I will be talking about at the very end of the conversation today. So stick around and I will let you know about those shortly. Take it away, Bretta. Thanks so much, everybody.
Right. Fantastic. Okay, I'm just going to jump straight into the questions. We've talked a lot about kind of where to go to get knowledge and to really grow in that aspect. But I feel like a lot of this is also so much of like who you know, and that's something that people find like really a challenge to break into the space is they don't really know where to go. So I would love if each of you could maybe share a couple tips or groups that you found or just any methods of networking that have been really valuable to getting you to where you are in your career today. And we can go ahead and start with you, Mark.
Well, LinkedIn, of course, probably would be number one. I didn't particularly connect with my current colleagues on LinkedIn, but LinkedIn definitely exposes you to the content that you're going to need to understand, the language, the terminology, the figures, the data, the people, the organizations. So you can really start to learn a whole new language, quite frankly. And I would also say, you know, get to know the opponents just as well as your friends. If I'm going to challenge and counter the opponent's arguments, I need to know how they think. So I lurk on a Facebook group that is nothing but opponents. They don't know who I am, or at least they don't seem to care anyway. But I haven't said a single word, and if I did, they would throw me out in a heartbeat. But that helps me formulate my opposition and my arguments because I know how they think and I know what their arguments are.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Allie, what are your thoughts?
Can you repeat the question, please? I want to make sure.
Yeah, just any like tips on networking and really like breaking into the space with those connections. I know you talked about a lot of cold calling, but kind of like how can people get in with the right groups when they're seeking out these opportunities to learn more?
Yeah, I definitely want to second LinkedIn. That is one of my favorite platforms. You know, you're definitely adulting when you move from Instagram or TikTok over to LinkedIn as your main social media source. So LinkedIn, definitely have to support that. One of my biggest pieces though is if you find an individual that you think is interesting, whether it be on social media platforms, on webinars, of individuals that you feel that you identify with, that could be a great source of support for you, someone that you think would make a great colleague and friend. Just reach out. I think that's number one, is don't be afraid to reach out. I know I absolutely love when individuals decide to reach out to me, say, hey, this is really cool, check it out. I think we could network on this. I've done that many times. Individuals have done that to me. One of my biggest fears was getting over entering somebody's inbox and feeling like, you know, I was obnoxious. But at the same time, that's one of your biggest pieces for building your network and building your network across those discipline lines and building out that lexicon between disciplines as well. So simple, but very, very effective.
Yeah. So, and then Allie, we had a question for you in the chat kind of along these same lines on when you're reaching out to people for like writing gigs or just to build like those consulting connections, who are you reaching out to? Like, what's your industry contact? The question was, do you start with HR or marketing? Like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I did see that one too, and I wrote down notes so I could remember. Definitely don't reach out to HR in my experience. Reach out to the individuals who are in marketing. Always start, if they have a marketing manager, start there, sometimes content managers, but also for companies that are smaller, around 50 to 75 or less employees, I reach straight out to the CEOs. I always find that has a really good return rate. But that is my recommendation when it comes to writing and freelancing, especially in the content range. Things could be a little bit different when it comes to consulting, depending on the type of consulting you're doing. But if it's like content, education, that's where I suggest focusing.
Perfect. And Mark, we have a little bit more of a, I wouldn't necessarily call it a technical question, but some really great communication opportunity to share how you communicate with people on some of these issues. The question is, I'm going to paraphrase it a little bit, but do you have any recommendations for engaging with CBOs or NGOs, policymakers, any other stakeholders who have really decided that they want to advocate for pasture raised animals, small scale ag, as like the solution to factory farming or other like meat consumption? And then, you know, as how can you advocate for potentially like plant-based solutions without feeling like you want to isolate farmers?
Another good question as always, Bretta. So, clearly one has to establish common ground, no matter who we're collaborating with or partnering with. We're never going to agree 100% on everything. But, and even amongst the plant-based community, there, as I'm sure many of you know, there's divisions just within that. So one could focus on the divisions and the differences. One could also focus on where we do have shared goals, common ground, shared perspectives. And quite frankly, you know, none of these small communities, I feel, are really going to be effective in reversing the tide of industrial ag by itself. At some point, we're going to need to band together, and of course, across multiple social domestic issues, including racism, sexism, you know, communities of color, indigenous peoples. We're all going to have to unite. Otherwise, you know, big beef and big pork are just going to run the table, so to speak. We're not going to, you know, we're not going to be able to fight them individually. It's just the way it is. So, and then of course, that's where we can establish, have opportunities to establish even better common ground that we may not even recognize, and ultimately bring everybody together into what I call the big tent. I'm very much a big tent person. I don't want to shut everybody out. I want to bring them onto the tent, even if they're not vegan.
Awesome. No, that's so great. I think, yeah, learning about what things really look like. And I have so many more questions for both of you, but we're going to run out of time and I've got to send it back over to Mary to share some amazing resources with us. But thank you both so much for sharing your expertise with us. And if you guys have any questions, I've put both Ali and Mark's contact information in the chat, and please feel free to connect with them and ask them additional questions that you guys have. All right, take it away, Mary.
Thanks, Britta, and thanks again to both of our panelists tonight for sharing such valuable information. I promised a great resource, and I wanted to make sure you had all heard of and are familiar with Food Tank, the think tank for food. This is an amazing organization that offers so many fantastic free resources, webinars, a podcast, articles of all kinds. They are working to transform the food system. This just came out recently. It's a new cookbook that is all about healthy recipes to save the planet. It includes so many different chefs from all different kinds of cultures and backgrounds. And I wanted to recommend this as a great resource. And if you want to just give yourself your own little miniature grad school, listen to all the episodes, or even 5 or 6 favorite episodes of the Food Tank, our Food Talk rather, with Danny Nuremberg, as a way to broaden your knowledge. Wonderful resources here in terms of articles, definitely want to recommend this as an option for you all to learn more. So that's it. And I-10, why don't you wrap it up with one final couple of our final bits of words. Thanks a lot.
Amazing. Thank you all so much. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you, of course, to all of you for joining us tonight. I want to formally extend an invitation to all of you to join us at our next event, which is coming up this next Friday, August 26th, from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. This is going to be our third and final Cook for the Climate event, where we choose a sustainable spotlight ingredient, and myself and a co-host go into the nitty-gritty about why that ingredient can be considered sustainable, what that means, what are the resources that go into growing it, and at the same time, we cook a recipe together. So this upcoming Friday, next Friday, the 26th, I'm going to be joined by Ash Ganapati Raju, who is the owner of Ojaswi Foods, which is a climate-friendly food company. She has given us unique access to discounted rates for her chickpeas, and we're going to be cooking a traditional recipe that's been passed down through her family for generations and generations called tempered chickpeas. It's a super simple but really delicious and rich and complex flavored recipe that she's going to be teaching us. And it's going to be so much fun. So join us if you'd like, send it to a friend. And we're also doing a giveaway of 3 brand new, never before seen products that Ojaswi is going to announce live during our event for the first time ever. So join us on August 26th, again, 5 to 6 p.m. Pacific time. We just dropped the link in the chat if you haven't registered just yet. The registration is free. We have some free spots available. And thank you all again so much for attending tonight, and we hope to see you at a future event. Look out for the recording if you'd like to share this with others, and we hope to see you next time. Thanks, everybody.